one rolled-up sleeve, one faded tattoo, and every SEAL in the room stood without a word. That ink wasn't decoration, it was history. Lieutenant Commander Rebecca Morrison had been assigned to Naval Special Warfare Training Center Coronado for exactly 3 weeks. At 5 feet 6 inches with auburn hair typically pulled back in a regulation bun and calm blue eyes that reflected years of medical training and clinical experience, she moved through her nursing duties with the kind of professional competence that made her blend seamlessly into the medical support infrastructure of one of the military's most elite training facilities. Her uniform was always pressed and regulation perfect, her medical bag organized with military precision, and her approach to patient care reflected the exacting standards that characterized Navy medical personnel. To the SEAL instructors, candidates, and support staff at Coronado, she was simply their assigned nurse practitioner, competent, reliable, and entirely focused on providing the medical support that kept the grueling training program operating safely. The SEAL candidates knew her only by her formal title and professional role. Ma'am, when they needed to address her directly. The nurse, when they discussed medical appointments among themselves, or Doc Morrison, in the casual way that military personnel refer to medical staff. None of them had ever wondered about her background, her previous assignments, or what experiences had shaped her into the medical professional they encountered during their most challenging training evolutions. She was medical support, nothing more. Someone who ensured they remained healthy enough to continue the punishing physical and mental challenges that would either transform them into Navy SEALs or in their special operations aspirations. Her presence was taken for granted, her competence was assumed, and her background remained as invisible as her professional demeanor suggested it should be. Lieutenant Commander Morrison's daily routine was methodical and predictable. She arrived before dawn to review candidate medical files and training schedules, attended morning briefings to understand the day's training evolutions and potential injury risks, positioned herself strategically during high-risk training exercises, and provided immediate medical care for everything from minor cuts to serious training-related injuries that required immediate intervention. Her medical expertise was comprehensive, her emergency response capabilities were excellent, and her ability to handle the unique medical challenges of SEAL training was unquestioned. But she maintained a professional distance that seemed almost clinical, speaking only when necessary for medical purposes and never engaging in the casual conversations that typically developed between medical personnel and the elite warriors they supported. But assumptions can be dangerous, especially when they're made about people whose true experiences remain carefully hidden behind the most professional medical demeanor. Welcome to Silent Salute, where we discover that the most profound respect is often earned through experiences that remain deliberately concealed. Before we continue this extraordinary story, tell us in the comments which country you're watching from today. And if you believe that some stories are written in ink that can never be erased, hit that subscribe button to support our channel. We're honored to share these remarkable tales with you. Class 347 was considered one of the most challenging SEAL training classes in recent memory. 32 candidates from diverse military backgrounds, all pushing themselves through the legendary Basic Underwater Demolition/SEAL, BUD/S, training program that would either forge them into America's most elite maritime warriors or eliminate them through the unforgiving selection process that maintains the extraordinary standards of naval special operations. The training evolution that day was focused on advanced combat medical procedures under stress. SEAL teams operate in remote environments where traditional medical support is unavailable, requiring every team member to possess sophisticated medical skills that could mean the difference between life and death for wounded teammates during actual combat operations. Lieutenant Commander Morrison was assigned to oversee the medical training evolution, ensuring that candidates learned proper techniques while maintaining safety protocols that prevented serious injury during the realistic training scenarios. Her role was essentially supervisory, monitoring candidate performance, correcting improper procedures, and providing immediate medical intervention if training exercises resulted in actual injuries requiring professional care. The training was being conducted in a specialized medical facility designed to simulate combat conditions where SEAL teams might need to provide emergency medical care. The exercises were carefully controlled with multiple safety protocols, but the scenarios were designed to create the kind of stress and urgency that characterized actual combat medical emergencies. During the midday training break, the facility's air conditioning system malfunctioned, creating an uncomfortably warm environment that made standard long-sleeved uniforms impractical for continued training activities. The senior instructor authorized temporary uniform modification, allowing personnel to roll up sleeves to maintain comfort and prevent heat-related health issues during the intensive afternoon training session. Lieutenant Commander Morrison, like other medical and training personnel, rolled up the sleeves of her uniform blouse to adapt to the elevated temperature. It was a routine adjustment that dozens of military personnel make every day in response to environmental conditions, completely unremarkable and entirely practical. But as she rolled up her left sleeve to just above her elbow, something became visible that had been carefully concealed beneath her regulation uniform for the entire 3 weeks of her assignment to Coronado. A tattoo. But this wasn't just any tattoo. Even from across the training facility, several of the SEAL candidates could see that the design was distinctly military in nature, and more specifically, it appeared to be related to Special Operations Forces. The tattoo was approximately 3 inches in diameter, positioned on the outer portion of her left forearm. The design appeared to include what looked like military insignia, wings, or similar symbols, and text that was too small to read from a distance, but clearly represented some form of military unit identification. Chief Petty Officer Marcus "Tank" Rodriguez, one of the senior enlisted instructors overseeing the medical training evolution, noticed the tattoo immediately. Rodriguez was a 20-year Navy veteran with multiple combat deployments and extensive experience with Special Operations Unit insignia and military tattoos that represented actual service rather than decorative artwork. Rodriguez stopped what he was doing and stared at Lieutenant Commander Morrison's tattoo with obvious recognition and what appeared to be genuine surprise. His expression suggested that he was processing something unexpected and significant, something that fundamentally changed his understanding of the medical officer who had been providing support for their training operations. "Holy shit," Rodriguez said quietly, his voice carrying obvious recognition and respect. The comment was unusual enough to attract attention from other personnel in the training facility. SEAL instructors and candidates looked toward Rodriguez to understand what had prompted his reaction, and their attention naturally followed his gaze to Lieutenant Commander Morrison's exposed tattoo. Petty Officer First Class Jake "Bulldog" Martinez, another experienced SEAL instructor, moved closer to get a better view of the tattoo that had captured Rodriguez's attention. Martinez had served with multiple Special Operations units and possessed comprehensive knowledge of military unit insignia and the tattoos that represented actual service with elite military organizations. Martinez's reaction was even more dramatic than Rodriguez's. He stopped walking, stood perfectly still for several seconds, and then slowly came to attention. Not the casual military courtesy typically shown to medical officers, but the kind of formal military respect reserved for personnel whose service records commanded absolute recognition. "Ma'am," Martinez said, his voice filled with unmistakable respect and something that sounded like awe. "Is that a Ranger tab and Special Forces Combat Medical Badge?" The question hit the training facility like a physical impact. Every SEAL candidate and instructor in the immediate area turned their attention to Lieutenant Commander Morrison, trying to process what Martinez's question implied about their medical officer's background and previous military experience. Lieutenant Commander Morrison looked down at her exposed tattoo, clearly realizing that her routine response to elevated temperature had revealed military credentials that she had been keeping carefully concealed since her assignment to Coronado. Her professional composure remained intact, but there was obvious recognition that her background was no longer private. "Yes," she replied simply, her voice maintaining the same professional tone she had used throughout her assignment, but without any attempt to minimize or dismiss the significance of what had been revealed. The impact of her confirmation was immediate and profound. A Ranger tab represented completion of the United States Army Ranger School, one of the most challenging and prestigious military training programs in the American Armed Forces. The Special Forces Combat Medical Badge indicated service as a medic with Army Special Forces units during actual combat operations. But the combination of both qualifications on a Navy nurse practitioner represented a military background that was virtually unprecedented in the special operations community. Chief Rodriguez approached Lieutenant Commander Morrison with obvious respect and curiosity. "Ma'am, if you don't mind me asking, what was your previous service branch and military occupational specialty?" Lieutenant Commander Morrison's answer revealed a military career path that defied conventional understanding of how military personnel transition between service branches and occupational specialties. "United States Army," she replied. 18D Special Forces Medical Sergeant, later commissioned as Army Nurse Corps officer, then inter-service transferred to Navy when I completed advanced practice nursing degree. The revelation hit the training facility like a thunderclap. An 18D Special Forces Medical Sergeant represents one of the most elite and comprehensively trained medical professionals in the entire United States military. These personnel undergo years of specialized training in combat medicine, surgical procedures, and emergency medical care under the most extreme combat conditions imaginable. The progression from enlisted Special Forces medic to commissioned Army nurse to Navy nurse practitioner represented a military career path that combined the highest levels of tactical medical training with advanced academic medical education and clinical experience. Petty Officer Martinez asked the question that everyone was thinking. "Ma'am, how many combat deployments did you complete as a Special Forces medic?" Lieutenant Commander Morrison's answer provided insight into operational experience that exceeded the combat backgrounds of most personnel currently serving at Coronado. "For deployments," she replied, "Afghanistan and Iraq, attached to Operational Detachment Alpha teams conducting direct action and foreign internal defense missions. 4 combat deployments with Special Forces units represented extensive experience in the most dangerous and demanding military operations conducted by American forces. Special Forces medics assigned to Operational Detachment Alpha teams were responsible for providing all medical care for their units during months-long deployments in hostile territory where traditional medical support was completely unavailable." Staff Sergeant Williams, one of the SEAL candidates participating in the medical training evolution, approached Lieutenant Commander Morrison with obvious respect and amazement. "Ma'am," Williams said, "Special Forces medics have the most advanced combat medical training in the military. Why didn't you mention your background when you were assigned here?" Lieutenant Commander Morrison's response reflected the mindset that characterizes many military professionals who transition between different roles and service branches. "I was assigned here as a nurse practitioner," she explained. "My previous experience was in the past. I wanted to contribute to SEAL training through providing medical support, not by discussing old deployments." But Chief Rodriguez understood that Lieutenant Commander Morrison's Special Forces medical background represented capabilities and experience that could enhance SEAL training in ways that had never been available before. "Ma'am," Rodriguez said, "Special Forces medics receive training in surgical procedures that exceed what most military medical personnel ever learn. Your experience could contribute to our combat medical training in ways that would significantly benefit these candidates." Lieutenant Commander Morrison considered the suggestion carefully, understanding that revealing her Special Forces background had fundamentally changed her role at Coronado and opened possibilities for contributing to SEAL training that extended far beyond routine medical support. "Chief," she replied, "if you think my experience could enhance the candidate's medical training, I'd be willing to share what I learned." The conversation was interrupted when one of the training scenarios resulted in a simulated casualty that required immediate advanced medical intervention. The scenario was designed to test candidates' ability to provide emergency care for severe trauma under combat conditions, but the simulated injuries were complex enough to require instructor guidance and oversight. What happened next demonstrated why Special Forces medics are considered among the most capable medical professionals in the military. Instead of providing routine oversight and guidance, Lieutenant Commander Morrison stepped directly into the training scenario and began demonstrating advanced medical procedures that exceeded anything typically available through conventional military medical training. Her approach to trauma assessment was faster and more comprehensive than standard military protocols. Her knowledge of surgical procedures that could be performed with minimal equipment in field conditions was extraordinary. Her ability to teach complex medical concepts while simultaneously demonstrating advanced techniques was unlike anything the SEAL candidates had previously experienced. "What Lieutenant Commander Morrison is showing you," Chief Rodriguez explained to the candidates, "are surgical procedures that Special Forces medics use to save lives when they're operating hundreds of miles from the nearest hospital." The training scenarios that Lieutenant Commander Morrison developed were more realistic, more challenging, and more effective at preparing SEAL candidates for the medical emergencies they might encounter during actual combat operations than any previous medical training available at Coronado. Petty Officer Second Class David "Doc" Thompson, one of the candidates who would serve as a team medic if he successfully completed SEAL training, was particularly influenced by Lieutenant Commander Morrison's approach to combat medicine. "Ma'am," Thompson said, "learning from someone who's actually performed surgical procedures in combat conditions is completely different from textbook medical training. You're teaching us skills that could literally save our teammates' lives." Lieutenant Commander Morrison's integration of Special Forces medical experience with SEAL training requirements created educational opportunities that were unprecedented in the special operations community. Her combination of tactical medical expertise and academic nursing education provided training that bridged the gap between theoretical knowledge and practical application under combat conditions. Master Chief Petty Officer Williams, the senior enlisted advisor for SEAL training operations, observed significant improvements in candidates' medical capabilities and confidence levels. "Lieutenant Commander Morrison's training has enhanced our candidates' medical skills in ways that conventional training never achieved," Williams reported. Her Special Forces experience provides insights that transform medical training from academic exercise to realistic preparation for combat operations. But Lieutenant Commander Morrison's most significant contribution was demonstrating that extraordinary military experience often continues in unexpected forms. Her willingness to share her Special Forces medical expertise with SEAL candidates reflected the kind of inter-service cooperation that enhances the capabilities of all special operations personnel. The story of Lieutenant Commander Morrison's transition from concealed background to recognized special operations medical expert spread throughout the naval special warfare community and eventually to other special operations units. Her example reminded military personnel that extraordinary capabilities often remain hidden behind professional roles that don't require or encourage revelation of previous experience. Over the following months, Lieutenant Commander Morrison worked with SEAL training staff to develop advanced medical training programs that incorporated Special Forces medical techniques with naval special warfare operational requirements. Her programs enhanced the medical capabilities of SEAL teams while maintaining the high standards that characterize all aspects of naval special operations. "What Lieutenant Commander Morrison has taught us," explained Captain James Mitchell, the commanding officer of Naval Special Warfare Training Center, "is that the most valuable training often comes from professionals whose backgrounds include experience that directly relates to the challenges our personnel will face in actual operations." The tattoo that had been revealed when she rolled up her sleeve became a symbol of the hidden qualifications that many military professionals carry with them throughout their careers. Lieutenant Commander Morrison's Special Forces background had remained concealed not because she was ashamed of her previous service, but because her current role didn't require revelation of experiences that had shaped her into one of the most qualified medical professionals in the special operations community. 6 months after her tattoo was first noticed, Lieutenant Commander Morrison was formally recognized by Naval Special Warfare Command for her contributions to enhancing SEAL medical training capabilities. But more importantly, she had established training programs that continued to benefit SEAL teams long after her direct involvement in their development. Lieutenant Commander Morrison's legacy, Captain Mitchell explained during the recognition ceremony, isn't just her exceptional service as a Special Forces medic. It's her continued commitment to enhancing the medical capabilities of current special operations personnel through sharing her combat experience and advanced medical training. Lieutenant Commander Morrison's response to the formal recognition reflected the mindset that had characterized her entire military career. "The most important thing I can do," she said, "is help prepare SEAL medics for the medical challenges they'll face during combat operations. If my Special Forces experience can help them provide better medical care and save more lives, then sharing that experience is the most valuable contribution I can make. The training programs that Lieutenant Commander Morrison developed were eventually adopted by multiple special operations units, enhancing the medical training capabilities of special operations personnel throughout the United States military. Her integration of Special Forces medical techniques with modern training methodologies established new standards for combat medical instruction. But perhaps Lieutenant Commander Morrison's greatest contribution was demonstrating that the most valuable military experience often remains hidden until circumstances reveal its potential contribution to current operations. Her example reminded everyone that extraordinary qualifications can be found behind the most ordinary professional roles. Years later, when Lieutenant Commander Morrison transitioned to other assignments, her legacy lived on in the enhanced medical training programs she had developed and in the understanding that military experience represents a lifetime resource that can contribute to mission success in unexpected ways. The tattoo that had revealed her Special Forces background became legendary at Coronado, shared with new classes as an example of how extraordinary military experience often remains concealed behind current professional responsibilities. Her example reminded SEAL candidates that the people providing support for their training might possess experience that exceeded their own understanding of military service. The most important lesson you can learn here, instructors would tell new candidates, is that exceptional military experience often comes in unexpected forms. The nurse providing your medical support might be someone who's performed surgical procedures in combat conditions that you'll never encounter. The moment when Chief Rodriguez had first noticed Lieutenant Commander Morrison's tattoo had lasted only seconds, but its impact continued for years, reminding everyone that extraordinary military experience often awaits rediscovery and that the people we take for granted may be the ones whose backgrounds can most significantly enhance our understanding of dedication, expertise, and lifelong commitment to military excellence. Lieutenant Commander Morrison's transformation from routine medical support to recognized special operations medical expert demonstrated that extraordinary capabilities often remain hidden until circumstances provide opportunities for their revelation and application. Her story reminded everyone at Coronado that assumptions about people's backgrounds can be dangerous, and that the most valuable contributions often come from personnel whose true qualifications remain carefully concealed behind current professional roles. The tattoo that had been exposed when she rolled up her sleeve revealed not just individual military achievement, but a broader understanding of how military experience continues to contribute to mission success long after original service assignments end. When every SEAL in that room had stood without a word, they were recognizing not just a tattoo, but the profound respect earned through experiences that could never be fully understood by those who hadn't shared them. That ink wasn't decoration. It was history, honor, and a reminder that the most extraordinary service often hides behind the most ordinary professional appearances. Lieutenant Commander Morrison's willingness to share her Special Forces medical expertise when it could benefit SEAL training demonstrated that true military service continues in whatever form best serves the mission, and that the people we notice least may be the ones whose experience can most significantly contribute to developing the next generation of elite warriors. This story was brought to you by Silent Salute. Before we leave you today, here's our question. Have you ever discovered that someone you knew in a routine medical or support capacity actually possessed extraordinary military experience that they kept hidden? Have you encountered veterans whose true service records were far more remarkable than their current professional roles suggested? Tell us in the comments about the moments when you realized you'd been working alongside someone whose military background exceeded your own understanding of service and sacrifice. And if you believe that some stories are written in ink that can never be erased, and that the most profound respect is earned through experiences that remain deliberately concealed, hit that subscribe button to support our channel. Every story reminds us that extraordinary military service often continues in unexpected forms, and that the people we take for granted may be the ones whose experiences hold the greatest lessons about courage, dedication, and lifelong commitment to excellence. We'll see you in the next story where we'll discover another incredible tale of hidden military experience and the unexpected moments when extraordinary backgrounds are revealed through the smallest, most ordinary circumstances that change everything.